Bigfoot, the abominable snowman, and now a skunk ape. It's a creature that supposedly lurks in Florida's swamps with only a few rare sightings.
State Fish and Wildlife doesn't keep track of skunk ape sightings. The director of Bush Wildlife Sanctuary says while a specimen has never been brought into her facility, she would help if one showed up.
On the morning of July 21st, 1997, Burns Road runs empty through Big Cypress National Preserve in southwest Florida. The road itself is a two-lane strip of cracked pavement, cutting across 700,000 acres of cypress strand, sawgrass, and blackwater, and the clock reads 7:45. A real estate agent named Jan Brock is on her way to work. She rounds a curve, and something steps out of the swamp. The figure stands tall, somewhere between 6.5 and 7 feet, covered in shaggy hair, walking upright on two legs. It crosses the pavement in front of her car, and then it is gone. 15 minutes later, on the same stretch of road, Vince Doer, the chief of the Ochope Fire Control District, sees the same thing, and he happens to have a camera with him. He raises it and takes the picture. Doer would later tell reporters, "At first, I thought it was a bear, but bears don't stay up on two legs the way this thing was." Within 2 weeks, more than 50 additional witnesses came forward with sightings inside Big Cypress National Preserve, including tour guides, real estate agents, and a fire chief, all describing the same thing. The Tampa Bay Times ran the story under the headline, "Sniffing Out the Skunk Ape," and the Naples Daily News, the Miami Herald, and the Sarasota Herald Tribune all carried the account as well. The National Park Service, which manages Big Cypress, issued a statement and called the whole thing a hoax. The witnesses kept coming forward anyway. What Jan Brock saw on Burns Road that morning was not new. Her sighting was simply the latest report in a chain that stretches back further than most people realize, further than 1997, further than the 1970s, further than living memory, all the way to a printed newspaper account in Apalachicola, Florida, in the year 1818. This is the story of what people have been seeing in the Florida swamps for over 200 years. It is the story of bills introduced in the Florida state legislature to make killing the creature a crime, of 2 photographs mailed anonymously to a sheriff's department, of one man in Ochope who has spent the last 50 years trying to prove it exists, and of the scientists at the University of Florida who say, calmly and with mounting frustration, that none of it is real. 48 of Florida's 67 counties have logged sightings since 2010, and 346 entries fill the Florida database of the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. The state ranks among the top 3 in America for reports of this kind. Locals call it the Florida Bigfoot, the Swamp Ape, the Stink Ape. Most of them just call it the Skunk Ape. What people see in those swamps, and what they say they smell, is something they spend the rest of their lives trying to explain to anyone who wasn't there. To understand what is happening in the Everglades, you have to start in 1818. In a town called Apalachicola on the Florida Panhandle, a local newspaper printed an account of what residents called a man-sized monkey. The article described the creature raiding food stores along the shore and stalking fishermen working the marshes. And it stands as the earliest documented appearance in print of what would, more than a century later, come to be known as the skunk ape. The encounter that would change everything happened in 1957. Deep inside Big Cypress Swamp east of Naples, in the same wilderness where Jan Brock would have her sighting 40 years later. A group of hunters were attacked at their camp by what they described as a hairy, upright creature. They escaped, they told the story, and for the first time, Florida newspapers began to take the reports seriously. The 1960s brought the creature a name. Somewhere in that decade, no one is quite sure exactly when or who first used it, the term skunk ape coalesced. Other names rose alongside it: swamp ape, stink ape, the Florida Bigfoot. In rural Putnam County, locals called their version the Barden Booger. The wave came between 1971 and 1975, when sightings exploded across South Florida. Amateur archaeologist H.C. Osborne produced plaster casts of footprints measuring 17.5 inches long and estimated the creature at 7 feet tall and 700 pounds. Just past midnight on January 9, 1974, a man named Richard Lee Smith struck something with his car on U.S. Route 27 near Pembroke Pines. The figure rose off the pavement, roared at him, and charged the vehicle. 2 hours later, a patrol officer in Hialeah Gardens reported seeing, in his exact words, a huge, hairy creature limping along the road. That same year, on a hunting trip in what would soon become Big Cypress National Preserve, a 10-year-old boy named Dave Sheely stood beside his older brother Jack, peering through tall sawgrass. Jack lifted him up onto his shoulders, and from there, looking out across 100 yards of open swamp, the boy saw what he would later call a skunk ape, covered head to toe in dark hair, walking upright, watching them back. Dave Sheely is in his early 60s today, and he still lives on the same land, having spent the last 50 years trying to find that creature again. By 1977, the reports had reached the Florida State Legislature. A Republican state representative named Paul Nuckolls introduced legislation making it a misdemeanor to take, possess, harm, or molest any anthropoid or humanoid animal in the state of Florida. He explained his reasoning in one sentence: "I'd hate to see someone catch one and put it in a circus or in a zoo." The bill passed committee twice, in 1977 and again in 1978, and died both times before a floor vote. By the late 1990s, the reports had become so frequent and so consistent that researchers began trying to document them systematically. All of which brings us back to the morning of July 21st, 1997, on Burns Road, to Jan Brock and to Vince Dorr's photograph. In the 2 weeks following Dorr's image, more than 50 additional witnesses came forward, and a Pelican Tours guide named Steve Goodbread said he watched the creature from a wooden bridge for nearly 15 minutes, with 30 tourists behind him doing the same. On the evening of July 8, 2000 at 7:19 in the evening, according to the timestamp, Dave Sheely stood with a video camera on his property at Trail Lakes Campground in Okeechobee, Florida, and pressed record. What he captured runs roughly 2 minutes long. A dark, upright figure crashes through shallow water, moving quickly, faster than a deer in Sheely's words, before disappearing into the Cypress. The footage has been analyzed and reanalyzed, debated by Bigfoot researchers for 25 years. Smithsonian Magazine, in 2014, summed up the mainstream view in a single line: "It's extremely hard to watch this video and see anything but a guy in a gorilla suit." Sheely disagrees, and he told Orlando reporters in 2024, "It's never been disproven or discounted as a hoax." 5 months after Sheely filmed his video, in late December of 2000, an envelope arrived at the Sarasota County Sheriff's Department with no return address, and inside were 2 photographs and a letter. The photographs showed a large, dark, ape-like creature crouching in undergrowth. Its face was visible, its eyes reflected the camera's flash, its mouth hung open, and in one image, the creature appeared to be holding leaves between its teeth. The letter began, "Enclosed, please find some pictures I took. My husband thinks it is an orangutan. Is someone missing an orangutan?" The writer described the creature visiting their backyard 3 nights in a row, eating apples they had left on the porch, and they worried the animal would cause an accident on Interstate 75. Near the end of the letter, they wrote, "I don't want my backyard to turn into someone else's circus." The letter was signed, "God bless. I prefer to remain anonymous." The photographer never came forward, and they never have in the 25 years since. The images became known as the Myaka photographs, and a cryptozoologist named Loren Coleman, the founder of the International Cryptozoology Museum, took possession of the original prints. He traced them to a photo lab at an Eckerd drugstore at the intersection of Fruitville and Tuttle Roads in Sarasota, and from there he could go no further. The photographer's identity was never established. Coleman would later write of the images, "This is not to say the Myaka photographs are of an orangutan, but it certainly assists in identifying features that are found on a known anthropoid that appear to exist on this one too." Mainstream science has settled on a single word as the answer: bears. In the case of Florida, that answer refuses to fully add up. For decades, scientists have offered the same explanation for nearly every Bigfoot-style sighting in North America. A black bear standing on its hind legs can reach 7 feet in height. Bears suffering from mange lose their fur in patches and can appear strangely human, and their gait, when injured or curious, can briefly become bipedal. From a distance, in low light, in the kind of swamp where shadows move and water distorts perception, a black bear is the most parsimonious explanation for what most witnesses are seeing. In January of 2024, a data scientist at the University of Leeds named Flo Foxon published a peer-reviewed study in the Journal of Zoology. Foxon mapped Bigfoot sightings across the United States against black bear populations, and the correlation proved strong. For every additional 1,000 bears in a region, Bigfoot reports rose by approximately 4%. Foxon's study did highlight one place where the model broke down, however, and that place was Florida. Florida has a relatively large human population and many Bigfoot sightings, but the state has very few black bears and relatively little forest cover. In other words, the standard explanation explains every state in America except the one where the skunk ape lives. David Daegling, an associate professor of anthropology at the University of Florida in Gainesville, spent years studying primate anatomy before publishing a book titled Bigfoot Exposed, and his position is unequivocal. Bigfoot, he wrote, is a human invention, and it is reinvented constantly. Joe Nickell, a senior research fellow at the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, who reviewed 77 documented skunk ape cases, reached the same conclusion. No fossil record, no DNA evidence, not even a carcass. That's a huge problem for skunk ape believers. Bob DeGrosse, the public affairs officer at Big Cypress National Preserve, has gone further, stating that there has never been a substantiated sighting of the skunk ape verified by National Park Service wildlife staff, and none of that has stopped the witnesses from coming forward. In Ochapi, on the Tamiami Trail, Dave Shealy still leads tours into the swamp, while his son Jack runs the gift shop, the campground, and the small zoo. The Skunk Ape Research Headquarters sells field guides at $4.95 each, along with shot glasses and bumper stickers. Each summer, they hold the Everglades Skunk Ape Festival, and each fall, Skunktoberfest. Dave Shealy maintains the population is small, 5 to 7 of them, with maybe 2 or 3 more in the Myaka area. According to him, the creatures shelter in abandoned alligator dens, and the smell people describe is the swamp gas and old carcasses clinging to their fur. The elders of the Seminole tribe told him, when he was younger, that the creature is a spirit, and that when you see one, you are seeing something the modern world has no language for. The state of Florida says the creature does not exist. According to the National Park Service, it is a hoax. Researchers at the University of Florida say it is a story humans keep telling because we need it, Set against all of that, though, are 200 years of newspaper accounts, hundreds of witnesses across 48 counties, a state legislator who tried twice to make killing the creature a crime, a fire chief's photograph, a roll of film mailed anonymously to a sheriff's department, and one 10-year-old boy lifted onto his brother's shoulders to look out across the sawgrass at something he would spend the rest of his life trying to find again. All of that is also a piece of America. The Everglades cover 1.5 million acres, and Big Cypress covers another 729,000, and together they form the largest stretch of protected wilderness east of the Mississippi River. There are corners of that wilderness that have never been walked by a human being. In that darkness, something is being seen. Whether it is a bear with mange, or a man in a costume, or a memory the swamp has been holding longer than any of us have been alive, the witnesses are not lying. They are reporting, accurately, the shape of something that walked out of the cypress, and watched them briefly before walking back in. The Florida swamps, unlike most of the modern world, are still big enough and still dark enough that whatever is in them does not have to come out.